Ryan stood on the edge of the vast desert, staring at the horizon where the orange sand met the deep purple sky. The twin suns had already set, leaving only the cold glow of the moons overhead. For days, he had followed old maps and faded star charts, searching for a tomb that locals whispered about in fearful voices. The stories said the tomb was ancient, built by a civilization long gone, and that its great stone door only opened at midnight. Most people avoided the place, believing it to be cursed or protected by spirits. But Ryan did not believe in curses. He believed in curiosity and adventure. The sand beneath his boots crunched softly as he walked toward the outline of a structure rising slightly above the dunes. At first, it looked like a simple mound, but as he drew closer, he noticed the edges of carved stone walls hidden beneath layers of sand. Symbols, worn with age, were etched into the stones. Strange patterns twisted around one another, almost like they were alive. Ryan ran his fingers over the carvings, marveling at the precision. Each line seemed to glow faintly under the moonlight, as if the tomb itself recognized him. He set down his pack and took out a small scanner. The device hummed quietly as it mapped the tomb. Readings showed materials not found on the planet's surface. The stone was unlike anything human engineers had ever studied. It was smooth, heavy, and shimmered faintly with energy. Ryan felt a shiver of excitement. Whoever had built this place had knowledge far beyond his own world. Hours passed as he explored the outside of the tomb. Small vents and cracks hinted at hidden chambers. He marked each one carefully, noting where the sun or moons would cast shadows. The legends had said the tomb opened only at midnight, so he waited patiently, knowing the moment could come at any time. Around him, the desert was quiet except for the occasional gust of wind that moved the sand in gentle waves. He could see the footprints of small creatures that lived in the dunes, but none came near him. It was as if the tomb had its own guardians, keeping outsiders away until the right time. As the night deepened, Ryan noticed a faint glow coming from the base of the mound. At first, he thought it was a trick of the moonlight, but the light pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. His heart beat faster in response. He checked his watch. Midnight was near. The wind carried a cooler breeze, and the temperature dropped quickly in the desert night. Ryan pulled his jacket tighter and leaned closer to the door, a massive slab of stone taller than a small building. The carvings on it were intricate, twisting like living vines, and they shimmered faintly as if responding to the night air. He crouched and examined the symbols closely. Some of them looked like star maps, others like energy circuits. A small circular indentation in the center of the door caught his eye. It was too smooth to be a natural formation. He placed his hand over it, and the symbols around it brightened. A faint hum filled the air, vibrating through the ground and into his chest. Ryan felt a mixture of fear and excitement. This was no ordinary tomb. Whatever was inside had power, knowledge, or both. Minutes dragged slowly. Ryan could see the moons moving closer to their highest points in the sky. The glow around the indentation grew stronger. He stepped back slightly, unsure of what to do. Then, as the first second of midnight arrived, the entire door shivered. Dust fell from the edges, and a deep rumble echoed through the desert. The stone door, which had seemed immovable, began to shift. Slowly, it moved inward, revealing darkness beyond. Ryan's breath caught in his throat. The stories were true. The door really did open at midnight. A faint light came from inside the tomb, soft and bluish. It reflected off the carvings, casting strange shapes on the sand outside. Ryan took out his flashlight and stepped closer. The air around the entrance felt different, charged with energy. He could hear a soft hum, almost like whispers, though there was no one there. The floor inside was smooth, covered in dust, but Ryan could see faint trails that suggested someone or something had walked there long ago. He took a deep breath and stepped inside. The corridor was narrow but high, the walls covered in more of the glowing symbols. The light seemed to respond to him, brightening as he moved. His eyes widened at the strange machines embedded in the walls, gears and panels that looked as though they were alive. Small lights blinked rhythmically, and faint sounds of energy pulsing filled the air. Whoever had built this tomb had mastered something humans could barely imagine. Ryan paused and looked back at the door. Outside, the desert was calm, untouched, waiting. Inside, the tomb seemed alive, filled with secrets and challenges. He knew this was only the beginning. For hours, he explored carefully, touching the carvings, observing the machines, and recording everything in his journal. Every step filled him with wonder. He could feel the history of an ancient civilization waiting to be discovered. As the night went on, Ryan realized he was not just exploring a tomb. He was stepping into the past, into a story that only opened for those brave enough to wait until midnight. And Ryan knew that whatever lay ahead would test his courage, his mind, and perhaps even his heart. The adventure had begun, and the tomb was ready to reveal its secrets. The massive stone door had finished sliding inward, leaving a dark corridor before Ryan. The air smelled faintly metallic, with a strange energy that made the hair on his arms stand up. He turned on his flashlight, but the glow of the walls was already enough to guide him. The symbols carved into the stone shimmered softly, illuminating the path ahead in pale blue light. Every step he took echoed through the narrow corridor, creating a rhythm that seemed to match the faint hum of the tomb. Ryan paused to study the walls. The carvings told stories of a civilization that had mastered both energy and space. He saw figures that looked human but taller, with eyes that shone like stars. They held devices that floated above their hands, controlling light and movement. The illustrations showed ships that traveled across galaxies and structures that glowed with power. Ryan's mind raced. Humans had only scratched the surface of space, but these beings had explored it fully. The knowledge hidden in this tomb could change everything. As he moved forward, he noticed small panels embedded in the walls. They were smooth and cold to the touch. When he placed his hand on one, a soft light spread across it, and a low, melodic hum filled the corridor. Tiny symbols appeared, floating above the panel, forming words he could not read. It was like the tomb itself was alive, responding to his presence. Ryan felt a mixture of excitement and caution. He knew that curiosity had led explorers into danger before, but he could not turn back now. The corridor opened into a larger chamber. It was vast, much bigger than he expected, with a high ceiling that seemed to stretch into darkness. The walls were lined with strange machines, some spinning slowly, others glowing with energy. Ryan stepped carefully, avoiding the small platforms that rose and fell automatically. He could feel the hum of power under his feet, and the light from the walls created moving patterns across the floor. At the center of the room, a pedestal held a crystal sphere that floated above it. The sphere glowed with a soft white light, casting reflections on the walls. Ryan approached slowly, his eyes wide with wonder. As he drew near, the symbols on the walls shifted, forming a map of stars and planets he did not recognize. The sphere pulsed gently, like it was alive. Ryan reached out, but before his fingers touched it, a low voice echoed in the chamber. "Only the worthy may proceed," the voice said. It was calm, almost musical, and yet it carried authority. Ryan froze, looking around. There was no one else in the room. The voice came from the walls themselves, the machines, or perhaps the sphere. His heart pounded. He had heard stories of tombs that tested intruders, but he had not expected it to speak. He took a deep breath and spoke aloud. "I am Ryan. I mean no harm. I seek knowledge." The voice was silent for a moment, then replied. "Knowledge comes with responsibility. You must prove your mind, your courage, and your wisdom." Suddenly, a series of holographic shapes appeared in the chamber. They were like puzzles made of light, twisting and turning in the air. Ryan stepped back, realizing he would need to solve them to continue. He examined the first puzzle. It looked like a sphere with many layers, each one rotating in different directions. He studied the motion, testing different touches. Slowly, he rotated the layers to match the patterns on the walls. When the puzzle clicked into place, a section of the floor lit up, revealing a safe path forward. Ryan moved on to the next challenge. It was a sequence of lights that needed to be activated in the correct order. He remembered the carvings from the entrance, the story of the beings who controlled energy with precision. Using logic and observation, he pressed the lights in the right sequence. The chamber vibrated lightly, and the puzzle dissolved into glowing particles. Ryan felt a rush of pride. The tomb was testing him, but he was meeting its challenges. The final trial was the hardest. A wall of symbols appeared, shifting constantly. Ryan needed to recognize the pattern to unlock the door to the next chamber. He studied the symbols carefully, noticing that some repeated in a hidden rhythm. He traced the sequence with his finger in the air. The wall shimmered and then slowly parted, revealing another corridor beyond. Ryan breathed heavily, feeling both relief and excitement. He had passed the tomb's first tests. As he stepped into the new corridor, he felt the weight of the tomb's history around him. The air was thicker, charged with energy. He realized that this was only the beginning. The tomb had more to show, and more challenges to face. Ryan's curiosity burned brighter than ever. The floating sphere, the machines, and the glowing symbols promised discoveries that humans could only dream of. Ryan moved forward cautiously, feeling the hum of the tomb follow him. Every step brought him closer to secrets that could change the future. And as the light from the walls guided him deeper, he knew that the tomb had chosen him to continue its story. The adventure was just beginning, and he was ready to face whatever lay ahead. The corridor stretched ahead, wider than the last, with walls that shimmered in pale blue and green light. Ryan walked slowly, his eyes scanning the strange machines embedded in the stone. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Some had spinning rings that floated in the air, while others emitted soft beams of light that moved like streams of water. Each machine seemed alive, reacting to his presence with subtle movements and changes in color. Ryan felt a mixture of awe and excitement. He was walking through history, into the mind of a civilization far older and wiser than humanity. He reached a chamber that was even larger than the first. The ceiling arched high above, and strange symbols floated in the air, glowing softly. At the center, a platform held a device that looked like a combination of a console and a holographic projector. The symbols above it shifted and rotated, forming patterns that seemed to tell a story. Ryan approached carefully, his hand hovering over the controls. When he touched a panel, the device activated, and a holographic figure appeared. It was humanoid, tall and slender, with glowing eyes and delicate markings on its skin. The figure did not speak at first, but gestures of light formed around it, showing images of cities floating above water, ships traveling between stars, and machines that seemed to bend energy itself. Ryan realized he was witnessing the life of the tomb's creators. They had built a society that mastered energy and technology in harmony, using it to explore planets, travel across galaxies, and create wonders that humans could only dream of. A new image appeared, showing the creators leaving messages in tombs like this one. Ryan understood that the trials and puzzles were not meant to harm intruders but to test their mind, courage, and wisdom. He felt respect for the civilization. They had not only created incredible machines but had also valued intelligence and responsibility. The holographic figure moved its hands, and a soft voice echoed in the chamber. Knowledge is a gift, but danger lies with those who misuse it. Only the careful may proceed. Ryan studied the console, noticing buttons and panels that reacted to his touch. As he experimented, he saw that the devices could record and store energy. Small orbs floated above the panels, responding to his movements. Each one contained patterns of light that shifted when he moved his hand over them. Ryan realized that this technology could give humans the power to generate energy efficiently, explore space more safely, and understand physics on a level far beyond their current knowledge. Excited, he reached out to touch one of the orbs. The moment he did, the symbols on the walls brightened, and the room hummed with energy. A sudden rush of information entered his mind: images, numbers, and ideas that seemed impossible to remember all at once. Ryan gasped but stayed calm, focusing on the patterns. He recognized that the tomb was testing not only his courage but also his ability to learn and adapt. Humans were clever, he thought. If he could understand even part of this knowledge, humanity could rise to new heights. He stepped back and observed the machines more carefully. Some seemed to store energy from the planet itself, pulling it from the air, the ground, and even the light of the moons. Others projected images and holograms, teaching concepts that humans had yet to discover. Ryan realized the civilization had mastered control over matter and energy in ways that could change the future. But he also noticed warnings etched in the symbols: power without wisdom could destroy, and curiosity without caution could lead to disaster. Hours passed as Ryan explored the chamber. He touched panels, recorded symbols, and made notes about the floating orbs and energy streams. The tomb seemed to respond to him, brightening when he was careful, dimming when he hesitated. Every step required thought, observation, and patience. He felt a deep respect for the beings who had created this place. They had not only built machines but had built a system to test those who sought their knowledge. As he moved toward the back of the chamber, a doorway appeared, outlined in glowing symbols. Ryan approached it cautiously, sensing that this was the next stage of the tomb. The doorway pulsed with light, showing glimpses of a larger space beyond. He could see more machines, larger and more complex than the ones he had seen so far. The energy in the air was stronger here, and the hum of the tomb resonated in his chest. Ryan took a deep breath and stepped through the doorway. He felt a mix of fear and excitement. The tomb was revealing more of its secrets, challenging him to understand, to learn, and to grow. He knew that beyond this chamber lay the heart of the tomb, where the greatest knowledge and greatest tests awaited. Every step he took filled him with wonder and anticipation. The civilization had left a path, and Ryan was determined to follow it. He paused for a moment, looking back at the chamber he had just left. The floating orbs glowed softly, the machines hummed quietly, and the holographic figure lingered for a moment before fading. Ryan realized that this tomb was not just a test of skill, but a lesson in responsibility, courage, and human potential. He straightened his back, feeling the weight of the adventure ahead. With careful steps, he moved deeper into the tomb, ready to face whatever secrets and challenges awaited him. He was no longer just an explorer. He was a student of the past, learning from beings far wiser than humans had ever known. And as he continued, the tomb seemed to welcome him, guiding him toward discoveries that could change the future of his people. The next corridor was darker and narrower than the last, yet Ryan felt a strange energy guiding him forward. The glowing symbols on the walls pulsed gently, as if encouraging him to continue. The air smelled faintly metallic, and a soft hum filled the space, vibrating through the floor. Every step he took seemed to awaken the tomb, and he could feel the presence of the ancient civilization watching him through its machines. Suddenly, the floor beneath his feet shifted. Panels slid quietly into place, forming a pathway across the chamber. Ryan realized that the tomb had created a hidden challenge. The walls moved slightly, closing parts of the corridor behind him. He stopped, studying the patterns on the walls. The glowing symbols formed shapes and sequences, like a puzzle waiting to be solved. He knew this was a test of intelligence, and he focused his mind on the problem. He noticed a series of shapes rotating in rhythm. By observing their motion carefully, he began to understand the pattern. He mimicked it with his hands in the air, and the panels beneath him glowed brighter. Slowly, the pathway extended forward, allowing him to continue. A sense of accomplishment filled him. The tomb was not trying to harm him. It was testing whether he could think, observe, and act with patience. As he moved further, the next challenge appeared. A section of the floor split into platforms that moved up and down, some rising quickly, others slowly. He could see faint lines connecting the platforms to glowing panels on the walls. Ryan understood that the tomb was testing his timing and focus. He studied the rhythm, counting the pulses of light, and then stepped carefully from platform to platform. His heart raced with each jump, but he kept calm and steady. With careful timing, he crossed safely. At the end of the corridor, a wall of light appeared. It was made of thin beams that formed shapes and patterns, moving constantly. Ryan realized this was a trial of perception and patience. He needed to find the right path through the shifting beams. He took a deep breath, observing the patterns. Slowly, he began to move, timing his steps with the shifting beams. One wrong move could trigger the walls to reset. With concentration and determination, he reached the other side, feeling proud of his accomplishment. Beyond the beams, a new chamber opened. This one was circular, with symbols covering the walls in concentric rings. In the center, a pedestal held a small glowing orb, floating above it. As he approached, a soft voice echoed in the chamber, calm and clear. The final trial tests courage. Only those who face fear may continue. Ryan looked at the orb. Suddenly, shadows formed around it, taking shapes of creatures he had never seen before. They moved quickly, circling him, making soft clicking sounds. His pulse quickened. These were not real creatures, he realized, but holograms designed to challenge him. Still, his courage was tested. He could feel fear rising, but he reminded himself of why he had come. He had faced deserts, darkness, and puzzles, and he would face this too. He stepped forward steadily, keeping his eyes on the orb. The shadows lunged toward him, but he did not flinch. He moved carefully, following a path that the shadows could not reach. As he got closer, the voice spoke again. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the will to move forward despite it. Ryan felt the truth of those words. He reached the orb and touched it gently. Immediately, the shadows vanished, and the chamber glowed brighter. The pedestal sank slightly into the floor, revealing a new doorway. Ryan exhaled slowly, feeling both relief and pride. The tomb had tested him in many ways: intelligence, patience, focus, and courage. Each challenge had been difficult, but he had overcome them by thinking carefully and acting wisely. He understood now that the tomb was not only a place of knowledge but a place of teaching. The civilization that built it had valued skill, bravery, and wisdom above all else. The new doorway led to another corridor, wider and taller than the last. The walls were lined with symbols that glowed gently, guiding him forward. Small machines floated in the air, moving slowly, their lights pulsing with energy. Ryan realized he was moving closer to the heart of the tomb, where the greatest secrets awaited. Every step filled him with excitement, but also with respect. He knew the challenges ahead would be harder, but he felt ready. As he walked, he thought about humanity. Humans were young and curious, sometimes reckless. Yet he also knew that humans were clever, brave, and capable of learning quickly. If he could succeed in this tomb, he could bring knowledge back that might help his people reach for the stars safely. The tomb had shown him that intelligence alone was not enough. Courage, patience, and wisdom were equally important. By the time he reached the end of the corridor, Ryan felt a deep connection to the ancient civilization. He had passed their tests and shown that he was capable of learning and understanding. The next chamber, he sensed, would hold their greatest discoveries. He stepped forward with careful determination, ready to face whatever secrets and challenges awaited him. The tomb had chosen him to continue its story, and he would not fail. Ryan stepped through the doorway at the end of the corridor and entered a massive chamber that took his breath away. The ceiling arched high above, disappearing into shadow, and walls glowed with a gentle blue light. Strange machines floated in the air, rotating slowly, and beams of energy connected them in intricate patterns. At the center of the chamber, a large pedestal held a crystal sphere, floating several feet above its surface. The sphere glowed with a soft white light, casting reflections that danced across the walls and floor. Ryan approached cautiously. The air in the chamber felt alive, charged with energy that made his hair stand on end. As he moved closer, the sphere pulsed gently, as if it were aware of him. Symbols on the walls shifted, forming images of stars, planets, and strange devices that he did not recognize. Ryan realized that this was the heart of the tomb, the place where the greatest knowledge of the ancient civilization had been stored. He felt a mix of excitement and reverence. The crystal sphere began to project images into the air, forming holograms that floated around him. He saw cities that hovered above water, structures powered entirely by energy, and machines that bent light and matter. The beings who had built this tomb had mastered physics and energy in ways humans could only imagine. Ryan's mind raced with possibilities. If humans could understand even part of this knowledge, they could travel further into space, create energy safely, and solve problems that had seemed impossible. He studied the pedestal carefully. Around it, smaller devices hummed and pulsed with light. Each one seemed connected to the sphere, like parts of a system. Ryan realized that the sphere was not just a storage of information but a living library of energy and knowledge. He could interact with it, but he had to be careful. The warnings etched in the symbols earlier came to mind: knowledge without responsibility could be dangerous. He took a deep breath and touched one of the small devices. Immediately, information flowed into his mind. Numbers, images, and ideas appeared, too much to grasp all at once. He focused on the patterns, letting his mind sort the knowledge carefully. He saw diagrams of energy systems, star maps for planets humans had never seen, and devices that could manipulate light and matter safely. He realized that this knowledge could help humanity grow, explore, and survive in ways they had never imagined. While he absorbed the information, Ryan noticed symbols on the walls forming warnings. The energy of the sphere was powerful, but misuse could be dangerous. He understood that the tomb's creators had built these safeguards to protect the knowledge. Only those who were careful and wise could take it without harm. Ryan smiled to himself. This was exactly why he had come prepared and why he had studied the tomb carefully. He was ready to handle what lay ahead. He moved closer to the sphere, studying the energy that flowed around it. Small orbs of light hovered nearby, reacting to his movements. When he touched one, it expanded, showing a diagram of an energy system that could generate power from light and air without harming the environment. Ryan quickly made notes in his journal. This could help humans live better on planets far from their own, using energy safely and efficiently. Ryan spent hours in the chamber, moving from one device to another, learning and recording what he could. He could feel the tomb responding to him, guiding him toward knowledge that he could use wisely. Every discovery filled him with awe and respect for the civilization that had built this place. They had been brilliant, but also careful. They had not left their knowledge unprotected. They had tested the minds and hearts of those who came after them. As he studied the sphere, a new image appeared. It showed a large machine that could travel between stars, powered entirely by the energy systems he had just studied. Ryan realized that this was the ultimate gift of the tomb, the ability for humans to explore space safely and expand their knowledge of the universe. He felt pride and responsibility. This knowledge was not just a treasure for him, it was a responsibility to help his people and use it wisely. After carefully recording everything he could, Ryan stepped back from the pedestal. The chamber hummed softly, the sphere pulsed once, and the hologram slowly faded. He felt a sense of accomplishment and understanding. He had reached the heart of the tomb, learned its greatest secrets, and survived its tests. Yet he knew that the tomb held more challenges and more lessons in the chambers ahead. Ryan paused and looked around. The glowing machines, the floating orbs, and the crystal sphere had all taught him that knowledge and wisdom must go together. Humans were clever and brave, but the tomb had reminded him that caution, patience, and respect were just as important. With this understanding, he moved toward the doorway leading deeper into the tomb, ready for the next stage of his journey. Every step carried the weight of discovery and responsibility. Ryan knew that the knowledge he had gained could change humanity's future, but only if it was used wisely. The tomb had chosen him not only to explore its secrets but also to learn its lessons. And as he moved forward, he felt a growing sense of purpose. The adventure was far from over, and the tomb still had more to teach him. Ryan stood in the heart of the tomb, the crystal sphere glowing softly before him. The machines and holograms hummed quietly, responding to his every movement. He had learned more than he could have imagined: energy systems, star maps, and knowledge of a civilization far beyond human understanding. The discoveries could change everything for humanity. Yet, as he looked at the sphere, a thought settled in his mind. This power, if used carelessly, could be dangerous. He remembered the warnings from the walls, the tests he had overcome, and the lessons of patience and courage. Ryan stepped back and studied the chamber carefully. Around the pedestal, small orbs floated, each containing parts of the civilization's knowledge. Some were simple energy diagrams, others contained advanced ideas that humans were not ready for yet. He realized that not all knowledge was meant to be taken at once. The tomb was teaching him responsibility, showing that wisdom was just as important as discovery. He felt a heavy weight on his shoulders. He had to decide what to take and what to leave behind. He approached one of the orbs and touched it gently. Light flowed from the orb into his hands, projecting diagrams of energy systems and star charts. Ryan took careful notes, recording the parts he believed humanity could use safely. He paused often, studying the patterns and making sure he understood the ideas completely. He could feel the tomb watching him, testing his judgment. It was not enough to be clever or brave. He had to be wise. As he explored further, he realized that some of the orbs contained knowledge that could be dangerous if misused. Weapons, energy devices too powerful for humans to control, and star maps of distant worlds that could lead to conflict were among them. Ryan's heart beat faster, but he reminded himself of the lessons he had learned. He could not be reckless. He carefully chose to leave these orbs where they were, hidden safely within the tomb. He understood that true wisdom was knowing one's limits and acting responsibly. Hours passed as Ryan worked, moving from orb to orb, learning and recording. Each decision felt important, as if the tomb itself were judging his choices. He felt both pride and humility. Pride in his ability to learn and understand, and humility in the face of knowledge far greater than his own. He realized that the civilization had built these trials not just to protect their knowledge, but to teach values that were more important than discovery alone. Finally, he reached the largest orb, the one hovering directly above the pedestal. It pulsed with bright white light, radiating power that filled the chamber. This orb contained the greatest knowledge, advanced energy systems, interstellar travel designs, and ideas that could give humans incredible power. Ryan stared at it, feeling the pull of curiosity and ambition. He wanted to take it all, to bring it back to humanity immediately. But he stopped himself. The lessons of the tomb were clear. Power without wisdom could destroy more than it could create. Ryan took a deep breath and made his decision. He recorded parts of the orb that humans could understand and use safely, leaving the most dangerous secrets behind. He carefully documented the patterns, the energy designs, and the star maps that could benefit humanity. Then, with a steady hand, he placed the remaining knowledge back in the chamber, allowing the tomb to keep it safe until humans were ready. The crystal sphere pulsed once in acknowledgement, as if the tomb approved of his choice. He stepped back and looked around the chamber. The air was filled with a gentle hum, the machines glowing softly, and the holographic symbols floating in the air. Ryan felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything he had known. He had faced the tomb's greatest challenge, not just to learn, but to act wisely with what he had discovered. The trials had tested his intelligence, courage, patience, and now, his wisdom. He had passed. Ryan knew that the knowledge he brought back could change the future. Humans could travel further, generate energy safely, and explore planets with confidence. But he also knew that there was still much to learn. The tomb had given him not just information, but understanding. He felt a deep respect for the civilization that had created this place, and for the lessons they had left behind. Finally, he turned toward the doorway leading out of the chamber. The path ahead was still uncertain, but Ryan felt ready. He carried not just knowledge, but responsibility, and he knew that he would honor it. As he walked, the machines and symbols glowed softly, guiding him out of the heart of the tomb. The adventure had taught him more than discovery alone ever could. It had shown him the true meaning of wisdom, courage, and human potential. Ryan paused at the doorway, looking back at the glowing pedestal and the crystal sphere. He felt a quiet sense of connection to the ancient civilization. They had trusted him with their greatest secrets, and he had proven worthy. With determination and pride, he stepped forward, ready to continue the journey and bring humanity into a future shaped by both knowledge and wisdom. Ryan stepped carefully through the doorway and into the familiar corridor that led back toward the tomb entrance. The glow of the walls guided him, lighting the way as he reflected on the lessons he had learned. The crystal sphere, the floating orbs, and the machines had not only shown him knowledge but had tested his courage, intelligence, patience, and wisdom. He had succeeded, and the weight of responsibility pressed gently on his shoulders. The tomb had entrusted him with something far more valuable than technology. It had entrusted him with understanding. As he walked, Ryan felt a connection to the ancient civilization that built the tomb. They had lived long before humans reached the stars, yet they had created a system to guide and test those who came after. Their tests had been fair, challenging, and full of purpose. Ryan realized that he was part of something much bigger than himself. The knowledge he carried could change the future, but only if he shared it carefully and wisely. The corridor led him to the chamber of trials he had passed before. The puzzles, the platforms, and the walls of light remained as they were, silent and still. He moved quickly but carefully, retracing the steps he had taken to prove his courage and patience. Each challenge reminded him of what he had overcome. He smiled, feeling pride in his abilities and gratitude for the lessons the tomb had taught him. Finally, he reached the entrance where the massive stone door had opened at midnight. The desert night was calm, the moons casting a soft glow across the sand. Ryan paused at the doorway, looking back at the tomb one last time. Its glow pulsed gently, like a heartbeat, as if acknowledging his journey. He felt respect and awe for the civilization that had built it, knowing that they had watched him, tested him, and ultimately trusted him. Ryan stepped out into the desert, carrying carefully recorded knowledge that humanity could understand and use safely. He felt the cool night air and breathed deeply, the stars above stretching endlessly across the sky. The adventure had begun with curiosity, but it had ended with understanding and responsibility. He knew that the discoveries he had made could help humans explore space, generate energy efficiently, and expand their knowledge of the universe. When he returned to his small settlement, he shared the information he had gathered with other explorers and scientists. The diagrams, the energy systems, and the star maps were studied carefully. Ryan explained the lessons of the tomb: knowledge must be paired with wisdom, power must be handled responsibly, and curiosity must be guided by patience and courage. The people listened, inspired by his story and the discoveries he had brought back. Soon, humans began to use the safe knowledge from the tomb to improve their technology. Energy systems became more efficient, allowing colonies on distant planets to thrive. Spacecraft designs incorporated ideas from the ancient civilization, making exploration safer and faster. Ryan watched with pride as humanity took cautious, responsible steps toward the stars, using what they had learned to grow without risking destruction. Despite the progress, Ryan never forgot the tomb. He knew that it still held secrets too powerful for humans to use safely. The most dangerous knowledge remained locked inside, protected by the trials and the wisdom of the creators. Ryan respected this and often returned to teach others the lessons of caution and responsibility. The tomb had shown him that humanity's greatest strength was not just intelligence but the ability to choose wisely. Years later, the story of Ryan and the tomb became a legend. Children on the planet dreamed of exploring ancient places, not just for treasure but for knowledge and understanding. Scientists continued to study the discoveries, expanding humanity's reach and capability. And always, the tomb remained, its stone door waiting for the next person brave enough and wise enough to enter at midnight. Ryan felt satisfaction in knowing he had honored the trust placed in him. He had faced fear, solved challenges, and made choices guided by both courage and wisdom. Humanity had gained knowledge that would allow it to thrive and explore safely. And he had learned a lesson far more valuable than technology, that intelligence without responsibility was incomplete, and courage without wisdom was fragile. As he looked up at the stars, Ryan smiled. The adventure had changed him, and it had changed humanity. The tomb had not just revealed secrets, it had revealed the potential within every human to rise, to learn, and to grow. And in that moment, he felt certain that humans could reach far beyond their world, not only because of their curiosity but because of their courage, patience, and wisdom. The desert was quiet, the moons high above, and the tomb behind him. Yet its glow seemed to follow him, a reminder that the greatest journeys were those that tested both the mind and the heart. Ryan continued forward, carrying the lessons of the tomb and the promise of humanity's bright future. He had learned that the true treasure was not the knowledge itself but the way it was earned, understood, and shared. Humanity was ready for its next step, and he had been the one to guide the first, careful stride.